Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks, failures, and challenges become the stepping stones for growth, clarity, and purpose. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today we are joined by Robbie Samuels. He is a book launch strategist, an award-winning full-time author, and the founder of the Bees Book Pub Hub. His book have received over 900 written Amazon reviews and reached number one bestseller in 37 categories across 4 countries. However, he is here today to expose a massive industry secret. Hitting number one bestseller did absolutely nothing to help him grow his business. He realized that the publishing world is obsessed with useless vanity metrics, so he completely rebuilt his approach. Today, he designs and implements strategic launches that generate real social proof and turn books into actual business development tools that drive revenue. So, Robbie, I am honored and excited to welcome you to the show. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. So let's dive into it. You achieved what almost every author dream of, hitting number one bestseller in 37 categories across 4 countries. Most people would pop the champagne and consider they had made it. So what was the, moment of realization where you looked at those accolades and recognized that those massive vanity metrics were completely failing to generate actual revenue or momentum for your business?
Well, my background is as a professional speaker, and I'm a member of the National Speakers Association, which is one of multiple national speakers organizations globally. And when I started working on my first book in 2016, it was because I kept hearing from my peers and the people that I aspired to be peers with that I needed a book. And so write a book, write a book, write a book. At the same time, there was definitely some murmurs around people manipulating the system to hit number one in a probably not even related category, and then using that to prop up their introduction and their bio. So I had heard a little bit about it. I finally in 2017 have a book written and I'm ready to hand it to the editor. And I have the realization for the first time that it's a good book and I want people to read it, which is when I realized I didn't have a plan for how to get people to read this good book. And I then went through the effort of actually building a launch team, delayed the publication, did everything backwards and wrong because I didn't know what I was doing. And I had a goal of getting 100 plus reviews, which I did do. Through the process of getting those reviews, I hit number one in 3 Amazon categories in the US. Truth be told, I probably hit number one in at least one other country like Canada, because I definitely had sales coming in from Canada, but I wasn't paying attention to that. It didn't seem hard at all to hit number one. And I later learned that you could sell in a lot of categories as few as 24 books in like a condensed period of time to hit the number one category. Now, that's not true in all categories. My most proud number one category, I actually have a screenshot of rotating at the top of my LinkedIn profile. My latest book is called Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews that Drive Revenue. And I knew one of the categories that I wanted to be in the US was called market research. Well, it happened that Malcolm Gladwell and Seth Godin had both just released new books. And because of that, the first 4 books in that category were books by those 2 authors, their new books and one of their more recent books. And so I was like, well, I can get in the top 10. It is the right category. It's good company. I should just go for it. I ended up, for a moment in time, getting in front of them, being number one and having them all lined up behind me. I have this really cool shot. Now, if you go to my book sales page, the product page today, you will see no evidence the book ever hit number one. There's nothing long lasting. The ribbon goes away. But what you will see is 268 global ratings. And if you dig in a little bit, you will see 261 people took the time to leave a written review. And that's lasting social proof. So to me, seeing people hitting number one in one US and one Canadian category, and then putting international bestseller on the cover of their book or in their bio. It just feels like full of falsity. Like it just doesn't feel real. It's pumping themselves up. And if you convince yourself like that's true, that's not a good look for you. Now I have a colleague, Phil M. Jones, who hybrid published by Page Two, which is an excellent hybrid publisher. His book called Exactly What to Say has sold millions of copies and translated into a dozen languages. By every metric, his book is an international best-selling book. So I don't think what I did is what Phil did, right? But it is notable. I think in the worlds of what we all try to do, like my third book hit number one in 18 categories. Half of the categories that I had number one in was from one of my four books. So I don't just condense it to international best-selling author because that to me, it makes me on par with the people who are just kind of making the thing up. And it didn't really, I mean, maybe they sold, I don't even know if they sold 100 copies to hit number one in those two categories across the US and Canada. And yet they're like declaring themselves to be something. It's an easy way actually to point out to people that you're an independently published author by doing things like that. Because the traditionally published books would never have those kinds of mentions, those vanity metrics mentioned on the cover of a book. And it doesn't make you look like a professional as a speaker either. So that's when I just was like, we have to have a different metric for how we measure the social proof related to the book. And there's lots of reasons that I could share about why reviews are where I landed for this, but they're longer lasting is the first thing I would say.
All right. Thank you for sharing that with us. So you talk about people manipulating the system, just to hit number one, probably to have it added on their intro or something else. So, these are vanity metrics, and you say that it's not really what matters. So what do you think people should actually be focusing on, rather than just that metrics of being able to brag that your book once hits number one bestselling?
Well, I think I understand. I want to have a little compassion, particularly for first-time authors. I can understand the allure of the orange bestseller ribbon on Amazon. But I think instead of that being the goal, and particularly paying someone to hit that, like I don't think anyone should pay for bestseller campaign because it is so easy to do on your own with a little bit of effort. And it's a falsity to like declare it difficult and then charge people. I don't like people getting preyed upon for their desire to have success. Instead, I see hitting number one as a byproduct of a strategically run launch. So my clients are going to likely hit number one or get in the top 10 of their categories because we are lining up a community of likely prospects and referral partners. These are people who would directly benefit from reading the book or who might know those people. We're asking if they would be willing to commit to writing an advanced review. The ones who say yes get an advanced reader copy PDF and some review prompts to help it make it easier to write at least a 2 or 3 sentence honest review. We're collecting those reviews so that we can give it back to them when it's time to actually publish it on Amazon. We are only publishing Amazon's Kindle book first so that all early sales from the launch team are concentrated in one sales ranking. If you publish multiple versions of your book all at the same time, Kindle, paperback, hardcover, audiobook, any of those, your sales will naturally be split amongst them, which will lower your overall sales ranking within each of those mediums. And so the sales ranking is tied to the version of the book. By only making the Kindle book available, we're going to concentrate those early sales on one type, which boosts the possibility of hitting number one or getting in the top 10 or being in good company with other good authors. So as we're asking people to leave a review on Amazon, we are directing them to buy the book. Now, if possible, I recommend lowering the Kindle book price to 99 cents because we really would like to have it be a verified purchase review. But we're still focusing on people buying in relation to leaving a review. And verified purchase is one of the many factors that the algorithm looks at for deciding where your book shows up on the search results page. So by having, dozens, 100 plus people on your launch team, all being directed to take this action when the Kindle book becomes available, you're going to get dozens of sales in a concentrated amount of time. which is what leads to that number one bestseller possibility. But it's not the goal, it's a byproduct. And then I like to have the hardcover, paperback, whatever it might be, available 2 weeks is the release date from when the the Kindle book went live. So the Kindle book goes live April 1st. 2 weeks later is when the paperback or the hardcover is released. And that's way the launch team who really wanted that version could go get it and leave their review. Some people will buy both versions. They'll leave a review for 99 cents and then they're like, oh, the paperback's available, I'll go buy that. And the launch day, this is also part of the strategy, isn't until after that. So your publication day and your launch day are not the same thing because we want only the launch team to be going to your Amazon's product page for the book during that soft launch. What a lot of people do, and this is the part that I think, for considering how much people want success, this is like a missed opportunity. Publisher's job is to publish your book. It's in their name. That's their entire job. Some of them offer marketing services or they refer you to a PR agency. Well, a PR agency's job is to get people to see your book. No one is talking about how to get people to read your book or review your book. And if you drive traffic, paid or otherwise, to your book sales page before there's any evidence of sales or reviews, that page is not set up to convert. So what I'm talking about, whether it's traditional published authors, hybrid published authors, or indie authors, is actually having a launch plan that overlaps the sort of timing of the book coming out and before you do PR and marketing. And so those are the metrics I would be focusing on is how many people can you reach out to? How many people say yes to committing to writing a review? How engaged are the people on the list? And engagement isn't just writing reviews, because about a third will do that, but are they replying to your emails? Are they making introductions? Are they wanting to get on a call with you? Are they hiring you? I had a client who had all this trouble with Amazon. We ended up doing a Barnes & Noble launch. He collected 56 reviews. Only 22 got on Barnes & Noble. Part of a longer story about why that didn't work out for him. But in that time frame, he got 5 new contracts. And the goal of writing a book related to a business is the 5 new contracts. So that's the part I think most people are sort of losing focus on, is the book being a business asset, re-engaging conversations with people in their network who would recognize their name, you'd be happy to hear from them, and then seeing where those conversations lead, which is often to revenue and media opportunities.
All right. And that was a really valuable and insightful response. Great strategy there. So, you talked about how, written and verified Amazon reviews, are far more important than high ratings or bestseller banners. So why does the Amazon algorithm, reward social proof, and how does that specific metric actually translate, into a new business opportunity for the author?
Well, let's talk about Amazon's motivation, and we'll talk about it from the author's perspective. Amazon is in the business of selling. That's what they want. They will promote and put products in front of you that they think you're going to want to buy. They bundle things. They tell you other people who bought this also bought this other thing. These books might be of interest to you, these products. So how do they decide that? Well, they want to have products, or in this case, books that have a history of selling. A lot of times when an author first hears the concept of a launch team and trying to get reviews, their immediate thought is they're going to get 20 or 30 of their closest friends and family onto a list, badger them, twist their arm until finally they write reviews. Those are some of the hardest reviews to ever try to get. They love you, but they do not understand what you do, and they don't need your service, and they don't know anyone else who needs it either. So even if they do finally write a review, they're not going to make that introduction. It's not building a pipeline to anything. It's a dead end. And they suffer also because what they're doing is they're getting all these random 30 people from, some buy cookbooks, some buy mystery books, some buy travel books. And Amazon's very confused. The first 30 copies didn't go to one segment of their demographics. So they don't know who to refer it to. So then your book starts getting referred alongside of a mystery book. That doesn't make any sense. No one's then going to buy your book. So we're not working with the algorithm to help people discover your book. So that's why it's really important that the first few dozen books are purchased by people who either would directly benefit from reading your book or might know those people. And then at a minimum, aim to get 20 written reviews because honestly, if you go look, most don't have that. So there's the global ratings, which is the 1 through 5 stars. You don't have to buy a book or leave any written text to leave a 1 through 5 star rating. There are books out there that have lots, dozens, over 100 ratings. But if you click through to look at the number of written reviews, it's 20%, maybe 30%. So they really didn't make a big effort. Now, they may have quantity in their favor. Like, if you're well known enough, maybe, it's 20% of 600. That's still a lot of people, right? But it's still like, for most of us, we don't have that kind of quantity. So we have to be really strategic. More than 90% of us check reviews before we make a purchase, but less than 10% of us leaves reviews on a regular basis. So what an author is doing is asking someone to do something that's a little out of their comfort zone, unfamiliar. So breaking the process down, collecting the reviews in advance, offering review prompts, sending those reminder nudges, nurturing them towards fulfilling their intention. They take the action, they're going to feel good, we're going to feel good. If you ask them once, less than 10% will actually follow through. They're going to remember vaguely that they owe you something. They're going to avoid you when they can see you because they're going to feel bad about it and like they're going to get called out for not having done it. They're going to be repelled from meeting up with you as opposed to attracted to continuing the conversation. So if you're going to ask for reviews, you got to have a process for nurturing people through to the end. The algorithm looks at the quantity of reviews, the quality, meaning overall 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5 stars, the recency of reviews, and the percentage of verified purchase reviews. And from that, it's like, okay, for certain keywords related to your book, it'll make a determination on where to put your book in the search results. Because what is Amazon in the business of doing? Selling. So they want to put the books at the top of the search results that have the highest likelihood of converting a buyer. And they know that positive reviews are going to lead the individual buying it to consider your book higher compared to another book that doesn't have that traction, doesn't have that social proof. And if you're trying to get book to speak, you're probably in comparison with other authors and speakers who have books. So you better have some reviews because like you both could have books, but one can have 80 reviews and one can have 8. So it's a way that we can collaborate. And one last thing I'll tell you is I used to have a podcast about networking, and I had a guy pitch me through a PR agency to be on my show because he wrote a book about networking. And when I looked at his book on Amazon, it had 7 ratings and 4 reviews. And he had paid a hybrid publisher that I respected. I knew the hybrid publisher. He paid a PR agency I respected. He probably dropped $30,000 or more on getting this book done and didn't bother to activate his own network. And it was a book about networking. And I did not invite him to be on the show. So not having these visible social proof metrics could also prevent you from getting a yes from somebody.
Oh, wow. That was a really detailed breakdown and, it went into the depth of the question. So a core part of your strategy, it actually involves assembling a launch team of hundreds of people and guiding them through a personalized email nurture sequence. So, I like to know how do you maintain authentic and human connection at that scale, without it feeling like an automated spam campaign?
Great observation. I call it hyper-personalization at scale. And it's really an important piece of this. If you were needing a ride home from the airport at 11:30 at night and you texted 5 friends all on the same text thread or 5 separate texts, you're going to get a higher response rate if there was 5 individual texts. And that is my reasoning for why these messages are not sent through any kind of mailing list. People who join your launch team are not automatically added to an email list. They have the opportunity to be added later. They can say, yes, they're interested. But instead, they are filling out a Google form, which puts their information on a Google Sheet. And then I use a service called YAM, Yet Another Mail Merge, YAMM.com, which I write about in my book. And I mean, I literally give away There's no secrets here. I give everything away. The secret here is that it's a lot of work. So what you're really getting at is that it requires a lot of attention to detail. So if Mary and Bob were both on the invite list and Mary signed up right away, Mary should not get a reminder email to join. She should get the welcome email. And Bob, who didn't respond, should get the reminder email a few days later. Right. And on and on. Like if one person submits a review, they get a thank you and the other people get a reminder, like on and on. So at every junction, I have to know there's an A/B, like do they do something or not do something? Do they RSVP yes or not RSVP? So that is a manual process. We're often, as humans, like checking things off on spreadsheets. And then when it's time to send the message, I am sending it to the right people with the right follow-up. And I'm sending it on behalf of a client, the people who work with me. And I am triaging and managing their launch inbox and making sure that I'm staying on top of all the replies and sharing with them the ones that need their personal attention. It takes, I've calculated it's like 5 to 7 hours of time per week during the core part of the launch. So 40 to 60 hours of time that I'm saving my clients. But I've also can tell you that people have followed my process that I've written in the book, DIY'd it, do it yourself, and gotten decent and even great results. My favorite review from that, though, was someone who did that because they didn't have the cash to hire me, got on a call, did a video testimonial, talked about her results, talked about how well the campaign effort went, and ended with, next book, I hire Robbie first because that was a lot of work. And I was like, that's the truth. Like, you can do it. But I think for an author, I would rather their time and attention focused on the relationships and the follow-up, not on the individual nurturing sequence to get people to write reviews. I want them to follow up on the podcast introduction or something like that, or the opportunity to go speak somewhere and not get to hunker down to these details, particularly when you have that kind of scale. So yeah, if you go to booklaunchbrainstorm.com, you can get the book, the bonus content, an invitation to chat with me. But I have a checklist called the How Ready Are You to Launch checklist. And it's no email opt-in. Just take this 2-page little PDF and see whether you're ready to launch or not. It's available at robbiesamuels.com/launch checklist. And I need to come up with a shorter URL for that, huh? But it's branded to me. So yeah, but I just think people should know kind of what's in front of them, because writing the book is just the first part. So many people think that's the whole thing, but it's not a marathon, it's a triathlon. So you got to do the writing, the publishing, and then the whole launch and marketing goes third. And that's the part most people aren't really kind of as familiar with when they get to that.
All right. Thank you for sharing those with listeners. Really valuable indeed. And I'll add the links to the show notes of the podcast.
Thank you.
So, Robbie, before we wrap things up here, for the entrepreneurial author listening right now in our audience, who probably just published a book, they poured their soul into, only to watch it completely flatline upon release. So what's an honest, actionable step they can actually take, to salvage the assets and start building real social proof?
Well, I think the thing we can realize is that there's a difference between published and launched. So if they published a book in the past few months, but they didn't do all this other stuff, they published it. And no one's paying attention to the book, which means they could just go ahead and launch it as if they had just published it. Don't worry about it. Like, go build a list of people. In fact, the third part of my book talks about a relaunch, a full-throated relaunch, getting lots of people on a list. You have to adapt some of the messaging because the book already exists on Amazon. So you're not going to send the advanced reader copy. There's a little tweak there. Now, on a smaller scale, I organize something called the Kindle Flash Sale 3 times a year, where dozens of entrepreneurial authors collaborate and cross-promote their books over a 4-day period. And people use that as a reason to go back to their network, try to get a few more reviews in the few weeks leading up to the campaign, to be like, hey, my book's going to be in a campaign. You mentioned you were going to, or you read it or you were going to read it. Like, could you take action and leave that review in the next few weeks? They get lots of ideas from other authors. I'm basically teaching them how to do marketing. They get to be on a podcast panel with me. They get invited to lives with other authors. So looking for opportunities like that, whether it's something that you're doing through me or even just getting a few colleagues together to do a cross promotion. I think promoting yourself and your book all the time can be kind of exhausting. And you're like, all I do is ever talk about this book, or I never talk about this book because I don't want to talk about it anymore. But doing it with other people and crossing your audiences can add so much value because then you're giving somebody access to a whole list of discounted books while also, you are reminding them that you have a book in there. And that's great. So you can just scale up or down your relaunch, and it really depends on what you're aiming for. Like if you're trying to book more of a specific type of work, speaking, coaching, consulting, I would gear the relaunch to that outcome, because that's the purpose of the whole launch to start with, is like knowing where you want to lead readers is the first step. And I have a program called Author ROI Lab for folks who are just thinking about writing a book, because I think too often when I talk to people who have a book, they don't actually have a clear, articulate answer about how it ties in with their business. So just having a book is not enough anymore. We need to have that clarity and strategic alliance between the book and the business. So I often walk people through a decision-making process about that. And if they decide to not write a book, that's actually a decent outcome to figure that out in a couple of months rather than spending a year and a half, spending tens of thousands of dollars on a book that's not right for the business, and realizing that was a bit of a vanity effort and not really about a business strategy. So yeah, I think that the decision is it's not too late. Go, even if it's find a list of 25 people and ask them to be part of a little mini relaunch and ask them to leave a review in a certain time frame could help, because if you got even a few reviews a few times a year, you're going to inch your way towards those 20 and you're going to consistently get new reviews, which will help the algorithm.
All right. Robbie, thank you for sharing that. And I hope it helps that listener in the position where they need to hear this. So before we wrap things up, Robbie, I'd like to know if there's any other call to action, resources, or anything you like our audience to know about.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you again for this a chance to share with people. I'm on a mission to educate entrepreneurial authors about the difference between strategy or vanity. I have a community called BizBook PubHub. It's available at bizbookpubhub.com. It's where my podcast, which has 500 plus episodes, lives. We have a curated directory of experts who support authors through their journey of writing, editing, publishing, launching, and marketing, free virtual networking events, the Kindle flash sales. That will all be found at bizbookpubhub.com. You can always find me on LinkedIn. Please send a note. Tell me you saw me here on Ezekiel's show. I'd love to know that, and then I can share back with the hosts where they found me. But yeah, those are some of the resources that I put out. I put out a lot of content out on LinkedIn, so I'm always trying to gather the authors together.
Robbie, it has been a really valuable and insightful conversation with you here today, sir. And I thank you for taking the time to join us on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.